Alrighty. When you're ready, let me know.
How do I stop that going?
All right. All right. Well, good evening, everyone. I'm Melissa Sieben, Director of Municipal Services and Operation, and I'm also the Outcome Champion for Connected Cities. And this is our first meeting ever of the Connected City Advisory Board. And because we do not have a chair or vice chair for this committee, who would typically the chair would be running the meeting, I'm opening it up tonight. But our first order of business actually will be appointment of a chair and vice chair. And so what I would like to do is have you guys have an open discussion about who that would want to be, and if something changes over time, I don't think we have to get too hung up in the formalities of it all, but we can work tonight, and if you guys want to have a discussion about who might want to chair and who might want to be a second, the vice chair, that would be wonderful. And I'm sorry for the awkwardness of how this is going to work, but that's what we have to do.
Makes sense. I would motion that we maybe first do some introductions. I don't know if I need.
Oh,
Yeah.
sure thing.
Yeah, we don't need a motion.
Yeah, that is, okay.
So I'll go ahead and start. I'm
Yeah.
Mike Wazakowski. Previously with the city, I was on the Public Transit Advisory Committee, and that's how I came to be here.
What do you do? Maybe let's say like, all right, what's your like normal day job? Maybe how long you've been in Lawrence? What?
Sure.
what-
I moved here in 2007 when I started my grad program in computer science, and I've been living here since then. I previously worked for the Army as a civilian employee for a little over a decade, and since then have been a lead business and systems analyst for a local healthcare marketing agency.
Great.
I am Nick Kuzmiak. I've been in Lawrence since 2017, originally from the East Coast, lived elsewhere, and I am an engineer by trade, so typically in the environmental side. And I was previously on the Multimodal Transportation Commission, and also when it was just called the Transportation Commission, I was chair for, I want to say 4 years, but kind of getting lost to the sands of time, so something like 4 years.
This phone?
I live in East Lawrence. You live in Pinckney, so I'm much more familiar with kind of the core neighborhoods than elsewhere, but I've definitely gotten out and about in Lawrence as much as I can over the past 7 years-ish, so.
Great.
I'm Hillary Carter. I have lived in Lawrence since 2022, and I'm an urban planner by trade. I work in affordable housing, finance, and development with a consulting firm. Let's see what else. I was previously on the MMTC for the past 2 years. And then I live in the Centennial neighborhood. I'm glad to be here.
Great.
Do we need to unmute our microphones?
Yeah.
They're hot. Yeah.
Okay, so everyone can hear me normally
I
then?
would speak up.
Okay. Well, I'm Katie Andrus. I have lived in Lawrence since 2021, and I work at KU. I work in applied research. Before that, I worked for a micromobility organization in Denver, Colorado for 4 years, and I live in East Lawrence.
I'm Jenny Shrikano Muller. I've lived in Lawrence since 2016. I'm from South Dakota, but have lived on the East Coast, West Coast, a few other countries. And I work in operations and finance by day at a nonprofit, and am half owner of Cycle Works over on Castle, the bicycle store, but my husband runs it during the day.
Okay, I know Keith.
Thank you, everybody, for sharing where you're at. And our actual next agenda item will introduce the staff that are here in the room. So,
Oh, okay. I see. Okay, so first we got to do chair and vice chair.
You were the chair on the MMTC before.
If you want, I can kind of de facto run the discussion, just because otherwise I feel like it's maybe a bit chaotic. We can, I guess, maybe put forth some nominations, right? So at this point, I think everybody says, we start with the chair, if I recall correctly, and then
Yes.
everybody say who they would nominate. It can be yourself. We kind of run those people in a list and say, go down and vote it, I think. I believe you only get to vote for one person, right?
Yep.
Keep raising your hand. Okay.
There's one person you get to vote for. We can choose if you want seconds or not. I think with 5 people, it would be really weird to only have seconds, because then we end up with probably 2 candidates.
Yeah. Okay. So let's start all the way over on the right. Jenny, do you have any nominations? Are you interested, or are you just kind of
I probably don't have the bandwidth right now to do either one.
Okay.
I don't have a nomination.
Okay. Oh, also, sorry, I just realized, it might help, because you've also been chair of PTI
Yeah.
for at least a few years, to maybe go over like what it might involve. So I don't know what it will involve
Yeah.
here.
That would be great.
Well, from experience, we can say, because I guess where I'm starting this, I don't necessarily need to be the chair again, is what I'm saying. Like, I'm not going to jump in it unless it's kind of seeming inevitable. But to give people an idea of what happens, we typically meet with staff once a month over the phone, usually Teams or something.
Or email, something like that,
emails.
remotely.
To
usually.
basically get the agenda together and kind of plan out the agenda for the upcoming meeting, which is maybe 2 weeks ahead of time. This is at least how we did it for MMTC. And then kind of what's on the planning horizon, like what kind of things have we heard raised that we'd like to maybe get in the queue for agenda, stuff like that. What speakers should we get? What other staff members might have availability? How will things change? Stuff like that. At least for MMTC, it was the chair originally did it only, and then I started asking the vice chair to kind of help out because I wanted another voice in the room. So that really helped, especially on days when I just wasn't able to make that call.
My experience was very similar. I usually involved the chair and vice, well, since I was the chair, I usually involved the vice chair and the staff liaison in setting agenda. And yeah, 2 weeks beforehand, just to make sure that everyone knew what they were doing. Personally, I prefer involving as many people as possible in setting agenda items. So if other board members have topics that they want to bring up, I encourage people email me or contact the staff liaison and get that on their preliminary list. You know, there's always something for us to talk about, so there's always going to be a backlog of things that we can put on that, and that's what I see as the agenda setting session is much more like what's the most important and urgent things that we need to take care of that coming month, and then the chair and vice chair, depending on who is present at the meeting, actually execute the agenda, so like go through line item by line item, making sure that everyone knows what is supposed to happen, going through and approving minutes, and then going through agenda items and making sure that everybody talks and contributes in some way.
Yeah.
Which is probably the hardest thing because it's very hard to get people to contribute. So.
Yeah.
And I will say there is a slight different twist on how this is set up from before. So staff will be definitely bringing a list of items and proposed agendas. So the work of the chair and vice chair will be, significantly simplified, hopefully, from what I'm hearing that used to happen. So hopefully we will make this easier and less of a formal, job, so to speak.
And the chair and vice chair will be for a year, is that correct, if I'm reading this
Yes.
right? Okay.
In practice, yes. Usually it's because the appointments are 1 year at a time for who's actually on the board. Every new constitution of the board produces a new chair, new vice chair. You can, of course, continue to vote for the same people who've already been chair. That's what happened with Nick. That's what happened with myself. And, if that's, if someone is willing to do that, that's great. If someone wants to step down, that is absolutely their prerogative. We can't force someone to accept a nomination or a vote.
So I guess now that y'all are more, familiar with what the duties might be, I'd just be kind of curious to hear your thoughts on, where you're thinking in terms of nominations. Are you willing to jump in? It sounds like Jenny, probably not a good time. That's okay also.
Maybe it's helpful to hear who's interested first.
I have no problem volunteering and doing the duties again, but I also know that I have been chair for about 3+ years, and probably nice to give other people opportunities. One thing that I know a lot of people complained about on my board in particular was when we ended up with a very heavy male segment, and we tried our damnedest to get women to volunteer, but we couldn't find anyone, and complaints were, we need to be more balanced. Well, easy way to do that is make sure that there's a split. So if one of Nick or myself is vice chair or chair, then ideally it would be one of you three who's the analogous spot. But that doesn't necessarily mean it has to be that way. Just, I think that would be a little more even split of what we're doing, make sure that everyone's getting some representation.
I'd be interested in serving in some capacity. I know the chair tends to run the meetings, and I don't know that I know how to run a meeting yet.
and we'll teach you. So it's really,
Eh.
this is the most awkward meeting you're going to have because we don't have a chair and vice chair, and I apologize in advance. So after that, we'll be working with you. You'll have the order, the run, what we call the run a show, and we'll always be here to help and support. So this is, I would call low stress, should be real low stress. And I don't know how packed of a room we're going to have on a lot of topics, but yeah. So should be fairly low stress.
I'd say if it helps, I mean, you've been watching me flub through Robert's Rules of Order for years now. So like, if I can do it and not get kicked off or screw it up, then you can do it. I mean, not everybody is quite as competent as Mike is at Robert's. He's got it down.
But I will tell you that if you really want to get a copy of Robert's Rules of Order, you can order one for relatively affordable. Like, for example, I'm looking and, oh, there is a version that is $4 right now on Walmart. So, yeah, you can get a concise version that's relatively cheap, and if that is something that you're interested in doing.
But generally, the city will provide guidance
Yeah, you would.
significantly. It's like being a new actor and saying line. I mean, that's exactly how it goes.
Yeah, and I will tell you, I screwed up order of certain things when I was doing chair, and that's exactly what happened. Staff liaison, oh yeah, you have to do this. That's right, thank you very much. And we would jump in and make sure that we hit at that point. It's not supposed to be adversarial that someone intentionally screwing up. It's just, we're trying to get through the agenda, and we're trying to make sure that we talk about everything. And when there are votes, we make sure that everyone agrees with what we're voting on and gives a yay or nay vote on what they need to say.
So for those of you that have been chair before and have been, because I haven't been on any committee before, so I would feel comfortable being the vice chair, but I would not feel comfortable at this stage being the chair. But I would, given that it sounds like it's fairly low stakes and lots of help of learning your role and everything, what would you say what are the qualities we're looking out for then when thinking about nominating? Just who feels they have the time and capacity?
It doesn't take a lot of time and capacity, honestly. I feel like the actual time commitment of just doing like an hour of agenda gathering call and then the multiple hours of this meeting, it's kind of the same for everybody, plus that extra hour. It's all kind of how much you want to put into it. So as the chair, I felt kind of an additional duty to make sure I really knew the agenda front and back. So I would put a lot of effort into it. It's also interesting to me, like as an engineer, read plans is not that tough, right? So, you know, you kind of get what you put into it, I guess. But that being said, the real role of the chair is not necessarily to be the most knowledgeable person in the room. It's just really to kind of put the guardrails on the discussion.
One other thing that, this has nothing to do with the chair or the vice chair, but it's something to sort of help frame time commitments, or that there's subcommittees that staff form.
Oh, that's
And,
right.
and we do typically want someone from this advisory board to serve on a subcommittee. And so you had been on the land development code, I had been on like Vision Zero, but those are like, it's not that that should affect what chairing or serving as a vice chair is, but just so that you know kind of what a time commitment might look like too.
And I will say that again is another part of the change that was made. Only way we can have any kind of subcommittees or off committees would be through a commission-led action. So just understand, we won't be looking at a lot of those probably right at the start. It may get there down the line, but at the beginning, I don't see a lot of that because of the whole change.
For us, it would be hard to do anything that's a subcommittee anyway without breaking the quorum rules that would automatically make it an open meeting, because we'd be at, 3 people that we can do at the most, and then any more would automatically trigger, we have to have it broadcast, we have to have the agenda publicized ahead of time, all that stuff.
I am serving on the Vision Zero committee right now, and I'm still in communication with city staff about that. I presume that I should still.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay.
And whatever was ended has already been officially ended. If you're still on some committee that's working on stuff for the city, that's just fine.
Just wanted to clarify. Thanks.
So, Katie, I just wanted to let you know that I was, I think, 1 month in when I started here, and maybe like 2 months, and I got nominated to be the chair, and very quickly was thrust into it. I think at the time it was still over Teams, maybe? No, I think we were doing still in person. I was like, oh my God, I'm not sure I can really do this immediately. Like, I've just started on this board. I never had to run a committee before, and somebody's like, you'll do fine, don't worry about it. I didn't do great for a couple of months. It kind of took me a while to get my rhythm, but like we're kind of saying, it's a pretty forgiving setting. So like, just in case, and I'm not presuming here, but like, if you do think that lack of experience is maybe a barrier to being chair, I'd say I wouldn't worry too much about that.
Oh.
If it's just personal discretion, that's completely fine. But I would say lack of experience is definitely not a disqualifier here.
Yeah.
Well, trying to help facilitate, and that's what I'm doing at the moment. I hear there's some interest from Katie, Nick, and Mike, as well as Hillary. So that,
A lot of people.
Actually,
Yeah.
and there is gender balance in there, which is something that was discussed. So certainly look forward to maybe, Jenny, who's sitting over there, just who's not interested, if she has any thoughts on others. So, and we do have two individuals that are not here tonight, Ryan and also, is it Alice? Allison, yes. So certainly, understand there's a few more of you at the end of the day, and if we need to switch something up, again, this is
I would say that's
very
more relevant
perfunctory.
to scheduling when we're doing future meetings, because in particular, if Ryan is consistently working at this time and can't make it, then that kind of defeats the
Yep.
point of having him on the board, or we need to find a better time that works for everybody where this room or another room that would work is available. And I don't know what that would be specifically, but there are options at least.
All right, well, I'm going to throw out a nomination then. We're going to start with the chair. I'm going to nominate Hillary for chair. My thinking is that with your experience in MMTC, you have the background knowledge to pull this off, and you've been through it enough times that I think you can make it happen. What I'm thinking is, and I know this is unofficial because we're not at that stage yet, is having Mike as a vice chair as kind of that continuation of PTAC and keeping those, the rules of order in effect essentially, and like kind of helping coach along with the city, of course, getting their meetings. And then I think with you two on those agenda setting calls, that would be really helpful to kind of get the dual perspective of the tenured folks on the call. Now, this is not to say that I don't think your guys' contributions are going to be valuable immediately. I think they'll be quite valuable. But it sounds like since you're not super thrilled about jumping into it, that's why I'm kind of tossing the nomination at this point to Hillary, because it's only a year in, and you'd be amazed how quickly it goes. So that's where I'm starting here.
So we have a motion on the floor. Is there a second? I'm gonna
I
make the
think
poll.
we said no second because
Okay, okay,
the number.
okay.
can you break that down for me real quick?
The motion would be to nominate
Hillary.
Hillary as chair, and I assume, would you want to do it as a compound motion, or?
I thought we were just collecting names
Okay,
first and then.
first would, so first name that's up is Hillary, and I'm okay with that. I would be willing to be chair, but I have no predilection towards having my name on the top line.
I meant about why we're not doing a second.
Oh, just because it's small numbers. If someone seconds and someone else runs, then that's going to chew up 4 of the 5 votes.
Okay.
Does that make, do we need to second it? I don't.
Honestly, I'm not going to profess
think it would
an
be.
entire understanding of parliamentary procedure, nor do we really have to strictly follow it in that way. So I would say that if you are interested, I would go ahead and call for the vote.
Yeah, it's do you accept it, basically. You can second your own motion. Do you accept, Hillary?
I don't know if I should second the motion, but I'll accept the nomination.
Okay.
Katie, how do you feel about, you had expressed interest too.
Yeah, it's fine. I clearly need more time to learn how this works since I barely understand what's happening right now. And I'm like in the motions section, like, okay, thought I read this, but, yeah.
Okay, then
Yeah,
we
I
have a
feel good about
nomination for Hillary on the floor. And I don't particularly feel like nominating myself, so.
Okay. And any other nominations, I guess, while we're here?
So we,
Yeah, we have to ask 3 times, are there any other nominations? Seriously, are there any other nominations?
I don't have any.
Yeah, I'm guessing 3rd time, there's no other nominations?
And this is just for the chair.
Just for chair right now.
All right. I guess
should I recuse myself from voting?
No, you can vote.
Okay,
You
sorry.
can vote, you don't,
it's all kind of loosey-goosey right now.
yeah. So there's no other nominations, we only have Hillary for chair.
All right, I guess all in favor of nominating
Yeah.
All
I
right.
vote aye.
Okay,
I got it.
just raise your hands and say aye, so aye.
All right.
5-0.
There you are.
Congratulations, Chair.
Who made that motion for the minutes?
Nick.
I did,
Nick.
okay.
It was Nick.
I clarified what the text was.
Yep, I got it.
Does the vice chair typically move into the chair role?
No.
Vice Chair typically will cover chair duties if the current chair is not present at a meeting, or if the chair asks the vice chair to do that, but otherwise, no.
Vice chair is also kind of interesting because you do get influence over the agenda to an extent, but you also don't have to run the meetings. So it can be a very key role for somebody who is relatively quiet, but still is interested in the stuff, like our vice chair was for the past couple of years in EC, so. Who was yours? Lance?
Lance Fahey,
That's kind of what I figured. I'm actually surprised he's not here. Okay.
I think he decided he had put in a lot of time and didn't want to continue.
All right, so let's see, any nominations for vice chair?
You
And you can nominate yourself too, so.
I'll nominate myself.
I almost want to nominate Katie too, just to see where this goes, because you did express interest in being vice chair, so. And I was
Yeah, I'd be interested.
think you're qualified enough.
I think I'm figuring out that I'm gonna need something more than this folder to help me understand what's going on, but I'm sure I have a month or so to figure that out.
It takes. I
It
would
is
say
not-
It's a constant learning process to remember what's going on. I mean, I've been doing this for 4 or 5 years now, and I still am like, where is that resource where like all the crash data or like?
Yeah, no, I just mean the
thing?
process of what's
Oh.
happening right now.
Okay, that's relatively easy to learn actually.
Yeah.
You'll be up to speed in no time.
So there's two motions or two
Two
nominations?
nominations, yeah.
Yeah.
So if we have
Okay.
two nominations, then we would have to vote. Conceivably, we can talk about why we would be a good candidate, but I don't necessarily think we
I don't
need to
think we
go
need
that detailed.
No.
Just,
Seems like at this point we can just say, do you two accept your nominations?
yeah.
Yeah,
I do.
There would be
Okay.
two, oh, okay. okay.
Yeah, and then if there are two nominations, then we have to vote.
Okay, so we're going to do that first vote. Whoever, I guess, however, do you do it at the same time or do you sequentially? How does this work? I'm just kind of making up as I go along.
I think you have to do two separate motions.
Yeah.
Because you couldn't,
Well, no, it's, you either vote for one person or you vote for another, and I don't know that we technically need to do it as a secret ballot. It could be votes for Mike, votes for Katie. And,
Yep.
yeah.
I think that,
we can do that by hand, we can do it by paper if we want to do it secret, but we don't necessarily need to.
All right,
I'm not going to complain if everyone votes for Katie.
let's do the first one then. Just votes for Mike, raise your hand. Votes for Katie, raise your hand. Let's do that.
okay.
Okay, votes for Mike. Okay, votes for Katie. You don't actually have to vote, I guess, if you don't.
Yeah, if you don't want to vote,
You don't
that's
want-
fine too,
On a
yeah.
group of 5.
Yep.
Okay, any comments as we're going through it, just out of curiosity?
No,
Yes, okay,
Katie, take it.
All right.
yeah. I know it's kind of all over the place in terms of where I was going with that, but it's like, you know what, I think.
Well, guys, I just want to say thank you for getting through that. I know it was a challenge, and now we can kind of enjoy some of the other fun stuff. So the next thing that we do have up, Hillary, I'm going to take the lead here just a little bit more, is introduction of staff. And I want to first, I'm going to go ahead and introduce myself. I'm Melissa Sieben. I'm the Director of Municipal Services. I've been with the City of Lawrence a little over 2.5 years now. And I lead our public works and utilities for the city, and also the Connected City Outcome, which is what you're here to help support tonight. I am, my background is pretty extensive in city management and county management. So if you chase my resume back, I have worked in about 7 different organizations over the last almost 30 years. So I know this stuff fairly well, but I am not an engineer. I am a city manager by trade, and I function in that capacity with my team who's here tonight. There are 2 staff people that will be working directly with me, and I'm going to go ahead and have Melinda Harger introduce herself, and then Trevor Flynn with their backgrounds, and then last I'll have Kathleen, who's our documentarian for the evening.
Good evening, I'm Melinda Harger. I am Assistant Director of MSO, leading our construction management and engineering group. I've been with the city 12 and a half years. I was in consulting 9 years before that. I am a licensed engineer, and I work a lot with the budget and the capital improvement program, and just making sure all of our projects are moving forward.
Good evening. I'm Trevor Flynn. I'm the other assistant director with MSO, and I oversee our treatment operations division in our regulatory and environmental services division, which includes treatment includes our 2 wastewater plants, 2 water plants, lift towers or lift stations, our water towers, and then on the environment side, we have our HHW facility, compost facility. We do the stormwater MS4 permit administration. And implementation on that program. Pretty much anything, the city has 7 NPDES discharge permits, so anything regulated by either the feds or the state upon the city, we kind of handle that. But we also are regulators ourselves, so anything stormwater pollution prevention, we're out at a lot of construction sites, that sort of thing. So I oversee that side of the house. But my background, I've been with the city for 5 years. I've been in Lawrence since 1990. I come from an environmental background. I worked at KDHE for 24 years, more on the side of environmental remediation and water quality. We also have the farmland remediation site in our environmental group as well. And glad to be here.
And I'll go ahead and have Kathleen introduce herself into the mic. Mike.
Yeah, I'm Kathleen Von Atchen, and I'm working with Melissa at SMO. I was the former finance director of about 7 or 8 different cities in the past. I've been working in local government for about 30 years. And large cities, small cities, California, Colorado, and Kansas. So I have a lot of experience in municipal finance and economic development and debt financing, and as well as municipal utility rate structuring. And so I think I'll be a valuable resource for all of you when you're talking about how to pay for spending money.
Yes.
Yeah.
So this is your team that you will see most of the time as we go forward with our meeting schedule. We will obviously be bringing in other folks within municipal services, or for that matter, transit. Adam Weigel, who some of you know probably quite well, and his team, as well as even our city's IT department, which is also covered by this same topic area called Connected City. There is a subordinate board that's not subordinate to this, but another board that's tied into Connected Cities, which is our Aviation Advisory Board. I also work with that board with our airport manager. Kathleen is with me on that one as well. So you will see that there's some things that occasionally maybe we'll cross over a little bit on. But I wanted to help you understand that there's also this other part of Connected City, which is newer because we've recently added some performance indicators for the airport, which had been kind of left out during the development of the city's strategic plan. So any other questions about the staff that are going to be supporting you?
Honestly, sounds like a great team. This sounds like really set up for success, and I'm really excited to see where this all goes.
Thank you.
Good.
Yeah. So the next thing on the agenda for tonight is kind of going over what a connected city is, and my team is here. They will jump in if they need to save me or rescue me, because they were here living and breathing, going through the development of the strategic plan. But we're going to cover that briefly. We're going to talk about our progress indicators or key performance indicators that we are using, which will really be part of the work that we're having you work with us on, is making sure that we're driving those indicators in the direction that the community is needing and desiring. And that's where you can really kind of help fuel us as we go forward. And then we'll also, just as a wrap-up portion of this, talk about the advisory board's role, and I'll just recover that information. I did the same thing with the Aviation Advisory Board, and they were very thankful for that, because it is a change, and we're all learning at the same time. So Connected City, I'm sure you've seen this, those of you who've been involved in other boards for the city, but we are charged with basically efficient infrastructure, facilities, and managing of the city's assets. That's a lot. We have quite the portfolio of whether it's buildings to treatment plants to pipes under the ground to roadways to bikeways that we're responsible for, as well as an airport. That is what this group right here is working on every day, is to have those well-maintained and functional assets for the community. The other part that we work on that will come before you in different ways is about accessibility and sustainability and safety. So those are really key aspects. Just this summer, our governing body adopted a ADA right-of-way transition plan. Our staff will probably be sharing a raised grant application with you in the coming months that we intend to go for to try and kickstart or jumpstart or hop over the many years that we told the governing body that it was going to take to complete that. So those are the types of things that we're looking at, working on, and we'll be sharing with you. And the sustainability side, Melinda is going to be, going and learning more about Envision next week, and those are some things that are going to cross over. So we'll be bringing in conversations with some of our commitments as part of our strategic plan. So you'll see those show up in different ways here. We'll be working with Kathy Richardson. So very different scope of conversations than you're used to. So Nick, you seem pretty energized. I'm thinking you'll be really energized because we're going to geek out in a lot of different ways. Yeah. And then just working on that continued investment to all of our assets for the well-being of our community. Tonight you were delayed probably getting here. That's one of those investments, and we have lots of those, and we need champions out there with us as we're doing a lot of this work who can share why we're doing things. So hope to be able to have you have that excitement along with us for all the work that your tax dollars are going into. So this is like a really long laundry list, but there are 14 progress indicators that were adopted with the strategic plan a number of years ago. We have put in for some revisions to those. Some of it's about just plain language, so it's a little bit easier for people to understand what we're talking about. Other parts of it are to kind of unbundle some stuff that got bundled together that really, when you take them apart, tell a better story about progress than when they're shoved together. It kind of hides progress in different areas. So these are it. This is out on our agenda portal now. If you guys want to pull this down, or if you want me to send you this slide deck, I'll be happy to share it. And our strategic plan information is out on the website. So again, if you have questions, just go ahead and email me after this. But as you'll see, we can get into everything from transportation here to wastewater discharge standards. I mean, the excitement is real. And then non-automobile networks, renewable energy, the list goes on and on. So what we have done, there's 2 slides of these now. So when we had 14, now we've kind of expanded and are in progress with the city manager regarding this, but we've kept our satisfaction indicators in there. We think are really important to get the feedback from the community about how things are working, what it looks like as we do work, and does it have a positive impact or a negative impact? We hope not that, but those are things we'll talk about, especially when we get our resident satisfaction survey back this coming 2025. We do the survey again. They're in the process of getting that out to bid at the moment. And then things about the condition of our assets. We've been working very diligently with our team to update, upload, gather information about all the city's assets, and have developed an asset management policy that's been implemented. And there is a lot in that space that we can talk about, including sort of really what life cycle types of information do we want to have, and what does that look like? We can talk about street condition indexes, PCIs, things of that nature. So there's a whole variety of topics that come out of this that I think would be of interest. We can also talk about our facilities. The city has lots of buildings, and this being one of them that is a congested building. So we have this asset inventory being worked on starting this year, and we'll be bringing some of that information back to share with you guys as well. And then there's a few other things in here that we have an impact on that is like under the safe and secure outcome at the bottom, where like how much travel time does it take to get to emergency calls, and that's directly impacted by how our traffic network is functioning. So we'll have some conversations about that from time to time. And then the first one up here is that public rights-of-way accessibility guidelines that we've just implemented. And then just on and on about bikeways. Secondary priority, the bike plan is currently being reworked, and that is on the docket to come to you guys, I believe, in December, if we can find time for a meeting. As well as stuff related to transit, you'll be seeing that as well. So just a real kind of smattering of topics. But these are the revisions we've put forward, and we can go into these in more detail in an upcoming meeting, and maybe start breaking them down by chunks and having that come back in categorical areas, so that we have a night where we focus a little bit on these KPIs and then move over to some others where we may have a presentation on something else. So.
Well, so I have a question, and it might be for Trevor too. Previously, where was wastewater or water discussed, and under what umbrella? I'm curious. It wasn't.
It's always been a connected city, but it's been under the KPI were like months per year in compliance, and then we have
There was no advisory board, if that's what you're asking.
Oh, are you
Yeah.
talking about by an advisory board?
Previously, yeah.
Yeah, no advisory.
Oh, okay.
Nothing direct. I mean, he would have, if Kathy Richardson with our sustainability program would have had something, Trevor and his group would have come forward under that. But this is where they're calling it a crosswalk with our executive team on the outcomes versus the commitments in the strategic plan, is the interplay, and really trying to look at how that works. And I would say Kathy Richardson is probably one of our big valuable assets when it comes to how we're going to achieve the connected cities outcome, is that sustainability connection, and then of course sound fiscal stewardship, and then also in that same level of how equitable we provide those services. So hope that helps. So just as a reminder of the training that you may have had back in September, we are going to focus on exactly what I just covered with you, which is what a connected city is in the strategic plan. So if you get confused about what we might be talking about or should be talking about, it'll probably fall directly under this purpose that was established by the governing body. I'm not going to read it to you because we already walked through it. And then I just want to recover a few things that were in our board advisory training. Again, this work is related to driving our strategic plan outcomes and the connected city outcomes in particular for this group, and all those commitments that are also part of the strategic plan. You will work with us as staff to make recommendations to the governing body through minutes, reports, and formal recommendations, which is similar to what would have occurred with the other boards, but there's, like these little twists and nuances. Basically, you will not be directing the governing body. You're providing recommendations. It's kind of a similar function to how staff on items that aren't covered by a board or committee come forward and provide a recommendation for the governing body to consider. And basically, we'll work with you to stay within the confines of Connected City. So that's what we've been charged to do as staff. The chairs, which now this will be Hillary and Katie as vice chair, communicate with myself on matters related to our operations and our agenda, and we'll work to establish that time and how we do that. But what we'll do as staff, which is much like the city manager would do for the commission, is we're going to bring you forward a proposed agenda and talk to you about that, and try to make it so that it's doable within the time slot allotted, and that we're able to deliver a product to you that you can actually do something with. So. And then this is just the roles, as just a reminder again. So chair's facilitator, Hillary, and Katie, when you serve as backup. For public participation, and we do have one person from the public here tonight. And just to help maintain basically quorum and getting us through the agenda. And then the board members, just attendance, which all of you are here tonight, and thank you for being here even with the little snafu out front. And then, of course, I'm here to serve as a liaison between you and the governing body for the city, and to make sure that as staff, we're getting the input from you and using it to help better our operations. So just a couple other things that I went over with the Aviation Advisory Board, which turned out to be pretty important, is just everybody's bringing some different knowledge and backgrounds in, so I'm really glad that you chose to share your backgrounds, and those will become really important and when we look at stuff to be able to consider the whole community. The other one is disagreements. Just want to bring this up because it could happen. Should be directed towards me or to the city manager. And, you know, if I'm the problem, then you go to the city manager, okay? And he would handle that. The other part of it is our ethics policy, which I'm sure you were trained on. But the big thing here is how you would represent the city outside of these meetings, and just to be understanding that we have to watch how we may lobby outside groups. So if you have any questions about what that might look like or what that is, certainly get a hold of me. I want to keep you in a space where you're not having any issues and are, you know, happily coming here and not feeling stressed out. So, and then next, the responsibility for drafting ordinances and resolutions does lie with our city attorney. So you will not be doing any of that work, which is wonderful. I personally am weird and like to draft that kind of stuff, but I don't do it here, so that's nice. And then members, if you have any conflicts of interest, you would just need to come to me as those may arise. I'm assuming if you're here tonight, there probably wasn't any because you went through the training. And then last one, once a decision is made, it is the will of the majority and thus the will of the decision of the body. And as a public administrator, this is one of those really challenging things, is there may be two compelling arguments, but once the vote is made with our parliamentarian over here, Mike, as he knows, that is what staff will then continue to pursue. So I just want to make sure that's clear and understood. We appreciate everybody's thoughts and feedbacks, but once the body's made a decision, that's the decision we're going to be working with. So that's the end of my rather short presentation for tonight. And if there's any questions, I'd be willing to take them. But the last action item is probably the big one. And I have some information, and you guys are ready to man the calendars if we can get through that. So let me tell you what's available, and then we can work from there. So you may want to write these down. Because I just received a calendar tonight, or late this afternoon. So the time we're meeting right now on Mondays is free, and we can adjust it. It would have to be after 5, because starting in December, that is when court is in here until 5, so we would need time to transition. Kurt, can you tell me, would that be about 30 minutes?
Yeah, the court goes till 5:30.
Oh, it goes till 5:30. Okay, so that may not be an ideal time on the first Mondays. The only other Monday timeframe, I think, is the 5th Mondays, which they don't occur every month, so.
4 times a year, roughly.
Yeah, exactly. Probably not ideal, right?
No, that's not ideal.
The other is second Wednesdays, and that would probably need to be right at 5. Because Planning Commission is in here, starting at 7:30.
Is it an hour and a half?
Oh, sorry, Cultural Arts, rather, is in here in the evening, starting at 7:30. So,
Real quick, Melissa, previously on the MMTC, we had study sessions at 5, and then, so that won't, okay.
Doesn't
It'll
exist
just be
anymore.
meetings at, okay,
Yeah.
this time. Okay, great.
yep, there's none of the bifurcated setup.
Okay.
I don't remember ever doing a study session with PTAC except for when it was just
understood that that was the replacement for the meeting at that point, and I wouldn't see a reason why we need.
Yeah, we can call it a work session item if that's what we need to do. So the second Wednesdays, there is a possibility in this room, but we'd have to be out before 7:30, okay, PM. So, and I'm hoping to keep these to an hour, hour and a half max anyway, because you're giving your time freely, and I understand that.
My experience is 60 minutes is a lot to expect out of board members, unfortunately, which is kind of disappointing, but
I mean, we had long meetings sometimes with the MMTC, don't you think?
It really depends. Kind of like planning commission. Sometimes they have a whole lot of agenda items and they're pretty contentious. And sometimes it's like, do you approve this house to still be a house? Yeah, sure, why not?
Yeah.
But some of our meetings do get kind of contentious with a lot of public comment and a complicated thing. Like if we would have like 9th Street and Mass Street
Yeah.
and the CIP on the same budget, like that was going to be a long meeting. And then other times it's like, just nominate a chair.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I guess I would be wary of a time that is constrained. I know it's easy for me to say, like, I'm volunteering. This is your guys' job. You have to stay here later than you had planned on, really late sometimes, right? So, like, I don't want to ask too much of that either. I don't personally have a problem staying late because, like,
I have 2 other dates.
Okay, yeah,
More
please,
options.
please.
So second Wednesdays would have to start at 5.
Yeah.
Okay? Fourth Wednesdays, there's no constraints that I'm seeing. And fourth Tuesdays.
Fourth Wednesdays at 5, Melissa?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, 5,
Any
yeah, 5:30. We really don't like huge, long gaps after work.
Yeah, of course.
For us, but also understand that if someone can make it by 5 or 5:30, that's probably ideal. Starting later, then it backs up late, and most of the folks in here have to be on commission meetings 3 nights a month, so
Yeah,
it starts to get a lot.
yeah, for sure.
But also on the fourth Tuesdays are also free. So you've got the second Wednesday, fourth Tuesday, and fourth Wednesday as blocks of time that appear to be free. Sorry, that narrows it down a lot.
honestly, that makes it easier to decide almost.
Yeah,
It's not so overwhelming.
yeah.
I'm okay with it.
I have
Yeah.
no conflict with any of those, so I'm going to have a hard time having much of a stake in this discussion.
Okay.
I'll just say, I don't think we should try to squeeze the second Wednesdays in, just because, like, if something would go late, I don't want to have to,
Works
like.
for me. Yeah.
I don't want to do that one, though.
So first Monday, fourth Wednesday, and fourth Tuesday.
Well, first Mondays could only be at 6, because
Yeah, and
there was
that's
something
starting
that
to
went
get a
till
little bit
5:30,
late,
right?
I mean-
And then you'd need a half an hour. So
Yeah.
it's really fourth Wednesdays at 5 or fourth Tuesdays at 5, I think, is what.
That doesn't change a whole lot for me. I might lean towards Tuesday, just knowing that if I am working in the office at Kansas City, Wednesday, 5 PM would be very difficult. It's not likely to happen, but Tuesday would be less conflicts for me, if there are any.
Tuesday is worse for me. Ryan says
Okay.
he ends work at 5, so I think starting at 5 might be hard for him.
So 5:30,
Yeah.
okay. So,
I'd say that first Wednesday option was the best one for me, or whatever Wednesday, but.
Fourth Wednesday, I think it was.
Yeah, we have the second and the fourth Wednesdays.
Oh, second.
And I will just add, occasionally, once or twice a year, a commission meeting sometimes does get moved to the fourth Tuesday. So
Okay.
we would have to cancel if that was, or reschedule if that was our date.
So it sounds
It
like,
happens sometimes in March when they get rid of the spring break meeting and move it to the fourth, so it does happen.
Well, I mean, we could always plan around that and decide that we need to move one meeting temporarily because of that. It's not ideal, but I mean, if the city is going to force us into that, we can have that freedom as well.
you said Wednesday was better for you, though?
Wednesdays, yeah, better.
so it looks like it would be fourth Wednesdays at 5:30 to accommodate Ryan and does that work for other people?
Yeah. After work, I'm in town, so it's just I need 15 minutes to be able to get here. So.
Okay, the only thing I will say is in December, that is Christmas.
Yes.
Okay,
So we would want to move that to probably another week, that period.
Probably the best thing we could do is do this Monday, the 2nd of December at 6.
Yeah, is actually.
And the other thing is,
the-
if there is, I mean, I know we have one item that's sitting out there, but is that a critical item for December?
You're saying if we
Bike.
did it the second Wednesday?
Well, no, I'm saying if we
in
don't meet
December.
at all in
Oh,
December.
don't meet at all?
Oh.
The bike plan.
Well, I mean, technically, we also have fourth
It's
Wednesday would be the 27th, which is right before Thanksgiving, too.
Yeah, but
Well, but we meet.
If we would
in
meet
November.
in November, technically, that isn't this one, so.
Yeah.
Is this our November meeting?
Yes.
I think so.
Okay. So December.
If we didn't meet in December, I would respectfully request the second Wednesday in January as a makeup. The reason is we have something we need to bring and have a decision kind of early January for the raise grant. That's our
Okay.
biggest.
So then.
And we would not be ready by the beginning of December for that.
Okay.
So I know that would be kind of.
Is there an option that we can do for December and then starting in January, we get on a regular schedule?
I like that idea.
Yeah, that would work too.
Yes. I think that the option she's saying probably doesn't work to go on,
December 11th, which is the second Wednesday, wouldn't work. We would not be ready.
so would you be ready on the 23rd, which I hate putting stuff that week?
I'll be here.
Yeah,
I don't go anywhere anymore.
it's not a big conflict for
I have the day off that day.
Yeah, it's just, I'm traveling, but I've got folks that could take up bandwidth if I needed to, so. Sorry, I'm from out of state, so those times are difficult for me generally, but, yeah.
23rd's fine for me.
How does December 23rd feel for you?
I won't be here, but
Okay.
Yeah, so we
As
have
long
to
as
watch
we have enough
quorum.
to make a quorum, that's fine.
So
We need four.
And I'll be here.
23rd, it's not ideal, but yeah, I can probably plan on being here.
We may not be ready by the 23rd, is the,
Oh.
So that puts us into the week of the 30th of December.
or the week of the 6th. We could do either one for the raise grant.
Yeah, sure.
The only reason I said January 8th is because it was one of the options, which was the second Wednesday.
Oh, I see.
So I was
Yeah,
just
it's,
throwing it out
well, do
there.
we need to meet in December then? It sounds like we don't because the stuff that you.
Yeah, that's why I was
bring to
asking
us
about
is
the
fine.
thing that she needs to for sure bring, so.
Okay.
Normally, we're not that constrained, but we just had the NOFO come out with information on the raise grant, and so we are scrambling to try over the next month and a half to get something ready, which we try to do a week ahead of these meetings. So we were hoping to have that done by the 23rd was the date we set earlier today, have our stuff ready. So anytime after, the week of the 30th or the 6th works, but if this meeting room is not available till,
Yeah, I don't think you want us to be here on New Year's Day for that.
No.
None of us are going to be in good shape for it.
Well, if everybody can be amenable to the 8th, and then we'll move to the fourth Wednesday thereafter. We'll go from there. Okay,
I
and
can't
then,
make the 8th, but we'll figure it out.
oh, okay.
That's what
Yeah.
Katie's for.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why you have a vice chair.
Meeting, amazing.
You're welcome.
Don't worry, you have competent and capable staff standing with you. Okay, so, and you said at 4 or at
I think it was
5:30?
I heard 5:30.
For the January 8th or for
The
the?
January 8th, it would,
Oh, it has to be done by 7:30, that's.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. It would be 5 PM or 5:30.
Ryan said in email he works until 5, so I would guess for him 5:30 is better.
Okay. All right. Can I get a motion?
Sure.
On that one?
Yeah. So I motion to have the next Connected City Advisory Board meeting on January 8th at 5:30 PM. And then subsequently, we'll have our regular recurring meetings on the fourth Wednesday of every month at 5:30 PM.
Second.
All those in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
All right.
Nice.
I like 5-0 votes. All right.
For
Wonderful.
clarification, not 2 meetings in January. We would start the fourth Wednesday starting in February.
Great, okay. Thank you.
Want a double feature.
Well, at least you said, since you're not going to be here, at least you said it's a bike plan, right?
It's a raise grant.
It's a raise grant
Oh,
application.
okay. great. So I have experience with grants and bikes. So I feel great about either.
Are we done with what's on the agenda? Okay, great, awesome. Thank you so much for this. I was going to ask and I know this isn't on the agenda, but the City Commission is voting on the Land Development Code next week, and the intersection of transportation and land use is so interconnected, and I think a connected city is driven by its land use in many ways. So I would like to make a motion, and Nick, you've worked a lot on the Land Development Code, right? And so you've brought some updates to us. There's been some things related to transportation, predominantly parking. And there's parking mandates that have gone back into the code. And, from where I sit, I just want to sort of walk us through some parking scenarios in Lawrence and like how it feels to walk in areas with an overabundance of parking. So like, I always think about the intersection of Iowa and 31st and all of that sea of parking and how all those stores are actually, like everything is really nearby, but I would never want to walk across Iowa to get to anywhere because of how it feels with the parking. And so, and then in my professional experience with parking, it's that it's pretty arbitrary how mandates are implemented with housing development. So I would like to make a motion to support the Land Development Code with the exception of ending the parking mandates in it. And I'd open it up to discussion and conversation.
I'm not sure this would be an item being added to the agenda for conversation, which we have not approved when setting this agenda out. So I don't know that this board tonight can really act on that. I'm not trying to be difficult.
I don't feel comfortable voting yay or nay on that, even knowing that it's coming up very soon, just because we don't plausibly have enough time tonight to talk about.
And you don't really have the right people in the room, to be honest.
Okay. Yeah, just when I was going through the training, it said that the boards could bring additions to agendas, but for tonight, we can't. Is that right?
I'm just saying that tonight, I don't have the right people in the room to talk land development code and transportation.
Sure. Yeah. I'd be interested to hear what others think here.
When is the vote on that?
Next week on the 12th.
Yeah.
And certainly you're able to go as residents and.
Yep.
And I would definitely encourage, if you feel that way, you absolutely should. And, you're now officially chair. You can sign something like that just as, it's not the board's. You're representing yourself, not necessarily the board at that point. And that's okay. I've written to the city commission as just in my own individual capacity, separate from being on committees and whatnot. And that's definitely your right as a citizen to do that.
Yeah, I know that. Yeah.
Honestly, so as somebody who's been on the Land Development Code Steering Committee for 2 years, it feels like it's been a long time. I was hesitant because there were some things I was like, I feel like we could do better on this one, maybe if we have more time. But once the City Commission had a discussion about what the actual timeline is going to be, especially the post-implementation timeline, I was like, oh, there is another chance to kind of iron details out once you've kind of broken in the code a little bit. So there's a planned major or potentially major revision in 6 months after implementation. Well, in that case, I don't see a need to delay this at all. I think we should get on with it. It's been 2 years, which is 6 months, I think, longer than it was supposed to be, just because the consultant kind of realized early on, we need a lot of time to talk about stuff. So I think because of that, in my personal capacity at least, and also from a transportation side, I feel like it's definitely good enough. It's pretty good as it is. And I think there are some things that can be improved upon. But I would, I guess, not trust people's judgment too much if they haven't read at least a couple chapters of it, just because it gets pretty detailed. And I guess, shooting from the hip, if you don't necessarily know what the details of the code are, it's hard to make an informed discussion or informed judgment on stuff, I guess. I'm not trying to gatekeep necessarily. I'm just saying, there's a lot of misconceptions about what's in the code and what's not. A lot of people are like, oh, they're going to turn our house into an apartment building. That's not really how it goes at all.
Right.
So I worry about misconceptions leading to judgments. And as much as I would guess that a plurality of us are in support of the motion, I guess I also don't want to force people into a decision that they think they support but aren't sure they support either. So that's kind of tough.
Can I ask a clarifying question? You said that after City Commission approves it, there's within 6 months an opportunity to make a revision to it?
It's already scheduled. So there's going to be minor clerical errors covered over the 6-month period following adoption. And then sometime in June, I guess, if it happens, they're going to have like a whole raft of things that have been kind of collected, including things that maybe were discussed in steering committee but not fully hashed out, or stuff's discussed in planning commission but not fully hashed out, or even just like taking the data and seeing where we've gotten so far. It's like, well, we really expect a lot more permits of this type. We haven't seen anything. What's going on? So stuff like that is going to come up, and I think even have like maybe one more steering committee meeting to kind of hash it out, and then that's going to go as a recommendation as a slate of improvements or I guess adjustments to the updated code, which is cool. I did not think that was part of the plan, so I'm very heartened to see that.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't been involved, like with the MMTC, we weren't involved in the land development code really, other than you as a liaison.
Basically, by the time it started getting interesting, we started having to cancel meetings. So unfortunately, I wasn't able to bring that up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think we should be involved with it.
I think in the 6 months after its implementation, we'll have plenty of time to look into it more and then come back with a really concerted thing. Because now we finally have like a full draft that has been gone through by the planning commission over the past 6 months or so. And I wish I would have gone to those meetings because I bet they had some pretty great discussions. But I guess, now that I'm saying it out loud, as much as I totally support that from a personal angle, I'm not sure I'm ready to put that forth as a board-wide motion. I would encourage anybody interested to actually go to the commission meeting or submit a comment or call in or something. I'm going to if I can. I can't, I'll be in Maine. But where am I going with this? But I do think that we should start putting it on our agenda to start kind of reviewing stuff. There's only really like 2 chapters that have anything to do with us, and I think those are worthy of going over for sure. Especially because there is a good chance that something could change. So, for example, I know parking is of interest to pretty much everybody. It's the most boring, exciting thing that really happens in municipal government. It seems up there with like property taxes. Super boring, super important, right? And I think because there's been so much discussion over it, it is going to be kind of under a spotlight. For those of you who are unfamiliar, the current code has mandated parking off-street minimums, not in that order necessarily, for pretty much every use. Every use has like a certain amount, and it's usually calculated per thing, like 3 spaces per 1,000 feet of bar, or 4 spaces per bowling lane, or stuff like that. So what the consultant has done is kind of said, you know what, how about we take away the minimums, actually replace them with maximum, which is like double progressive and radical. It's kind of unusual. Like taking away minimums isn't that unusual. Installing maximums is unusual. But at the sort of couple months ago, it was decided that residential parking minimums are going to put back in place, but they are significantly lower than they were in the current code. So the reasoning at the time was that in the steering committee, there was enough angst saying like, well, you say you're going to work out a parking permit system or demand-based parking or something, and you haven't done it. It's been 20 years and we haven't seen anything. There was not a lot of faith that there was an effort to actually, I guess, that there was the wherewithal for the city to pull that off in time for the feared car apocalypse to happen, where everybody's neighborhood just becomes like seas of cars because nobody's, making parking lots anymore. So those of us on the board who would have wanted to see minimum parkings reduced or removed everywhere were like, you kind of have a point. Technically, there is no plan in place for what happens to price on street parking accordingly. And until we have that, it's maybe not super fair to just be like, all right, have fun. Granted, it would probably affect 1, maybe 2 neighborhoods. The vast majority of neighborhoods would see 0 difference. If anything, it would be an improvement having cars along the street slowing traffic. That was great. But because of that, I essentially backed off and said, okay, this is not, I think, an argument I can win because history is not on my side. Like, there really is not a good plan in place to deal with off-street parking yet. But I think now it kind of could be our duty as the Connected City Board to perhaps take this on. No board has really taken parking on particularly well before. I mean, Planning Commission did a little bit of that when they were revising that article in the current zoning code. They actually tossed it to us as well, like 2018, I think. So like it's come up a couple times, but it rarely comes up as an actual policy discussion, usually just a site-by-site thing. So I think like this is kind of the time for it to happen. And I think we have a good timeline of 6 months to maybe kind of focus on it if possible, the staff's assistance essentially, to see like what what can we do? You know, let's talk to Brad Harrell, the parking manager. I think Adam is also parking manager. So.
Yes, transit and parking manager, I believe is his title.
Yeah. So
Or director, whatever, something like that.
yeah, so like there's a couple of staff people who I think would be instrumental to the conversation. And we could get a much more, I guess, informed discussion on how to go about doing this. And then
Yeah.
come back kind of ready to go in May or June or whatever.
I'm fine with tabling the motion. I would like to work on that in the next couple of 6 months grace period, it sounds
Yeah.
like.
Yeah, it's definitely on my to-do list for sure, so.
Sounds good.
Okay.
How do others feel about it?
I think it would help to understand that point that you brought up, Hillary, when we can and can't add items to the agenda.
I think this meeting's probably just a weird one.
Yeah.
And I think in the future, at least what I recall, and this may be different in the new structure, but like a certain percentage, and it kind of changed every week or every month, of items were from the city and kind of had to be like on a certain timeline. Like it is the time to talk CIP, it's time to talk bike plan. There is a project that is happening. Like these things are kind of immovable. They can be a little bit, but it's pretty inconvenient, right? And then there's the stuff that's brought up by the commission that is often just kind of general stuff. Like we need to talk about bike infrastructure. Like how do we want default bike infrastructure to look like? Stuff like that. And I would say that's usually in the minority of things that we talk about. It's stuff that maybe starts as a study session, obviously not right now, but, and then eventually migrates to that. So here could start as maybe commission items if that's still going to be a part of the agenda, and then migrate to an agenda item if there's enough people interested in talking about it. So, it could happen. Anyway. Anything else?
I move to adjourn.
Let's do it.
I second.
You don't need a second on that.
Oh,
Yeah, actually,
got that wrong.
adjourning is a privileged motion, so once it comes up, you have to vote on it.
you don't have to vote on it?
No, you do.
You don't
Once
have
it
to
comes
second
up, you have no choice but to vote on it. So if someone says, I want to adjourn, and someone else says, I second, you have to vote on it.
Point of order,
Yes.
are you taking public comment?
Oh,
We do not have it on this agenda, but we probably should take some public
Yeah.
comment if you are here, so.
I think we should.
I withdraw my motion.
Can we
Did you
take
do that?
public comment?
We're a public meeting.
Yeah, public comment, please, come on up, Michael,
Before you adjourn,
before we adjourn.
so thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you once again. Michael Allman, 1311 Prairie Avenue. I also was on the Land Development Code Steering Committee with Nick. Don't worry, I'm not going there. Welcome. I'm glad to see you all, and you will be seeing more of me, I promise. As someone, I mean, the scope of your work is much more inclusive than MMTC. And I'm kind of excited about that and put off. I mean, it's a big task, but I'm a whole systems thinker, and so I think of things in a broad base with a lot of elements. So I think it's a good scope for you to be taking on. What my main focus has been and probably will continue to be is what I learned from Hillary, actually, which is all ages and abilities bikeways. I'm very much interested in multimodal. That's one of my main focuses. Also, the 100% renewable energy ordinance from the city, too. So that's kind of the areas that I will most likely address. More specifically for right now, for tonight, I just wanted to talk about what I mentioned it at the MMTC on an occasion. I would like this board to think of this as well, which is the policy that, some years back, the MMTC was considering about micromobility and a policy regarding that, and then it dropped. But I think you really should reconsider that. The reason I say that is because out on the street there, things are changing quickly. With electric bicycles, with one wheels, with electric scooters, with even there's gasoline-powered bicycles out there. And what I see as an issue there is that some of these, right now, it's not determined one way or the other, but some of these are throttle. They can open up and go almost, I mean, whatever the design speed of that vehicle is, which could be 30, 40 miles an hour. The problem I see with that interfacing with city infrastructure, bicycles, one wheels, scooters can go on sidewalks. That's a huge conflict at 40 miles an hour or even 20 miles an hour. It's a policy that is begging to be laid out for safety reasons, for allocating the right-of-way for different types of vehicles. You know, should the one wheels be in the white striped bicycle lanes? Should they be on sidewalks? Should they be in the motor vehicle lane? Questions like that. So I encourage you to consider looking into that issue. Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm glad you brought that up, Michael. I mean, I know that, I think at one point I had looked up, like there's different classifications of e-bikes.
Yeah.
And there's like class 1, 2, 3, and 4, and there's like speeds, and I don't know all of them, but the state doesn't actually, is silent on regulating those different classes. And so I'm wondering if it's something we take up in this body. Don't quote me on that.
I'm curious, would this be something that we would be preempted by the state of Kansas from regulating in the city?
Yeah.
I would definitely like us to know about that, because that's something that we deal with on a regular basis, I'm sure, and I would like to know if we are going to overstep our boundaries very quickly.
Thank you. I think that's it, right, on our agenda? Okay. You want to?
I move to adjourn.
Second.
Yeah, I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye. Looks easy.
You got it. Thanks,
Thank
everybody.
you.